The millionaire found the cleaner fainted in his baby's room and was left in shock. In a world of luxury, where light gleams through spotless glass walls, sometimes the fiercest battles are fought in silence. People see the smiles, the glamour, but no one hears the quiet sobs behind those perfect walls. Emily Carter stood by the window of her small apartment, watching the sunrise shimmer over the ocean. She had just finished another long night taking care of her mother, Evelyn, who suffered from chronic lung disease. Inside the cramped room, the weak sound of coughing blended with the soft whisper of the sea breeze. On an old wooden desk nearby lay a stack of books belonging to her younger brother, Ben, a second-year college student trying to stay afloat on scholarships and night shifts. Life was a constant struggle. Medical bills, rent, utilities, everything closing in tighter around her. Emily had once worked as a home care nurse, but the nursing home where she was employed had recently downsized. Now, all she had left was a fragile kind of hope that things would somehow get better. That morning, the phone rang. A woman's voice from a home care agency said, "Miss Carter, we have a private client looking for a live-in nurse. The address is Hale Estate on the Santa Cruz coast near Monterey Bay. The pay is excellent, but the employer is said to be difficult." Emily looked up. A spark of hope crossed her tired eyes. "I'll take it. I need that job." She packed her medical bag, kissed her mother's forehead, and told her brother to take care of himself. When the door closed behind her, the morning light touched her face. Weary, yet determined. Across the city, inside a mansion of white walls and ocean views, another soul faced a sleepless dawn. Daniel Hale, 35, a successful tech entrepreneur, sat before a framed photo of his late wife. The emptiness inside him had never healed. In that vast house, there was only him and his infant son, Noah, 3 months old, a baby who had never known his mother's touch. No one knew that in just a few hours, the paths of these two lives, one woman searching for purpose and one man who had lost all faith in love, would cross in that oceanfront mansion where walls of wealth concealed more than just silence. The coastal road was still draped in morning fog when Emily stepped off the last bus. The ocean murmured somewhere beyond the cliffs, mixing with the salt in the air and the whisper of wind through the pines. She pulled her worn coat tighter and looked up at the massive black iron gates ahead. The silver letters, Hale Estate, catching the dull light of dawn. Behind that gate lay another world, one where people never worried about rent or prescriptions. She pressed the doorbell. The metallic sound echoed through the stillness, a lonely note against the hush. A few seconds later, the gate opened and a woman appeared. Blonde hair in a tight bun, sharp cheekbones, a gaze cold enough to freeze apology mid-air. "You must be the new nurse." "Yes, I'm Emily Carter. The agency sent me." "Clara Morgan," the woman replied evenly. "I'm Mr. Hale's house manager. Follow me." Clara's heels clicked sharply on the stone path as they crossed the courtyard. Emily followed, eyes drifting over the perfectly trimmed garden, marble statues facing the sea, and windows gleaming like polished mirrors. Everything was beautiful and lifeless. Inside, the mansion was enormous. Their footsteps echoed off marble floors, the scent of expensive perfume floating faintly in the air. Emily felt small, like a speck of color on a white canvas too clean to be real. "Mr. Hale doesn't like noise," Clara said as they walked down the corridor. "Until Mr. Hale signs off on your caregiving assignment, you'll assist where needed. You are not assigned to the nursery. 2 professionals handle that already." Emily nodded, steadying her voice. "Understood." They stopped in the kitchen. Spacious, sleek, almost too perfect. Everything looked like it belonged in a magazine photo, untouched by human hands. Clara pointed toward the counter. Until then, this will be your station. Prepare light meals when requested. And remember, do not go upstairs. That's the private area. Her tones sliced through the air like glass. Emily nodded again, but her gaze couldn't help drifting toward the curved staircase leading to the second floor. And that's when she heard it. A cry. At first faint, like wind through a crack in the door. Then clearer, thin, trembling, stretched out like a plea. Emily froze, eyes lifting instinctively toward the sound. "The baby's still crying?" she asked quietly. Clara didn't even look up. "Not your concern." Silence fell again, but something inside Emily tightened. That sound wasn't just a cry. It was loneliness made audible. Emily stayed by the window a little longer, but that faint cry kept threading through her thoughts like a thin wire wrapping around her heart. Each wave crashing outside seemed to echo inside her chest, pushing her, urging her. She told herself, "It's not your place." But the crying didn't stop. It grew softer, hoarser, the kind of sound that said the baby was running out of strength. Her eyes drifted toward the staircase leading upstairs. A pale wash of light fell through the tall windows, painting the hall in silver tones. Emily hesitated for a breath, then began to climb. Fear lingered somewhere inside her, but compassion was louder. With every step, the crying grew clearer. When she reached the white door at the end of the hall, her palms were damp with sweat. She paused, heart pounding, and then slowly turned the knob. The room was bright, antiseptic, bright, white on white, the kind of clean that erases fingerprints and, somehow, comfort. In the middle of it all stood a modern crib, gently rocking. Inside lay a baby, Noah. His tiny face was flushed, his cheeks wet with tears, fists trembling weakly. The sound coming from him wasn't just crying, it was pleading. Emily forgot every rule she'd been given. She leaned in close, whispering softly, afraid her voice might break the silence. "Hey there, sweetheart. It's okay. I'm here now." Her voice trembled slightly. She placed a hand on the small blanket, warm and soft under her fingers. Noah's cries hitched, then quieted just a little. Emily lifted him carefully, feeling his fragile body trembling in her arms, his breath shallow against her neck. "Oh, baby, you're burning up." She touched his forehead, too warm. "You've got a fever, don't you? Is no one taking care of you?" Noah whimpered, eyes shut tight. Emily held him closer, her heartbeat syncing with his tiny breaths. Almost instinctively, she began to hum, the lullaby her mother used to sing when nights felt too heavy to bear. "Sleep, little one. The sea is calm tonight." Her voice was barely above a whisper, but it filled the room. For the first time, Noah stopped crying. His lips parted slightly, his tiny hand clutching her shirt. Time seemed to stand still. Emily closed her eyes and felt something she hadn't in years: peace. Then a voice cut through the quiet, low, firm, controlled. "What are you doing in my son's room?" Emily turned sharply. Daniel Hale stood in the doorway, tall, shoulders squared, face drawn with exhaustion. The morning light caught his eyes, dark and weary. I heard him crying. No one was here, and I just put him down." The words sliced the air. Emily hesitated, glancing down at the baby now sleeping in her arms. "Sir, he has a mild fever. He needs—" I said, "Put him down." She bent carefully, laying Noah back in the crib. The baby whimpered, his brow furrowing, as if sensing the sudden distance. Emily stepped back, her pulse hammering in her chest. Daniel didn't yell. He just stood there, staring at his son. For a brief second, something flickered in his eyes, not anger but pain. He turned away, his voice barely audible. "Leave." Emily lowered her head and walked toward the door. As it closed behind her, Noah began to cry again. Weaker now, but heavier somehow. And in that long, cold hallway, for the first time in years, Emily felt like she had just left her heart in a place that would never belong to her. The next morning, Emily arrived early as usual. The mansion was silent, as if no one really lived there. The soft daylight slipped through the white curtains, laying a pale chill across the walls. The ticking of a clock was the only sound that dared to exist. She worked like a shadow, scrubbing floors, washing dishes, preparing breakfast that vanished before anyone touched it. Clara appeared right on schedule. Crisp shirt, perfect posture, that same stiff smile. "Remember, you're not to go upstairs," she said without even looking at Emily. "Mr. Hale will be in meetings all day. Focus on the kitchen and living area. Don't make me repeat myself." "Yes, ma'am." But no matter how hard she tried, Emily couldn't turn her ears off. The crying came again, thin, drawn out, slicing through the stillness. Every time she heard it, her hands would freeze, her chest would tighten, and her eyes would sting. The two nannies took turns going up to Noah's room. One was young, her attention glued to her phone. The other older, mechanical, moving with cold precision. Emily watched them pass the hallway, one carrying a bottle, the other a pack of wipes. Not a word exchanged, not a glance shared. At noon, carrying a tray for Clara, Emily caught voices from the corridor. "He's refusing his bottle again," one nanny whispered. "Then make him take it. Babies cry. That's what they do," the other replied flatly. Emily froze. The tray shook in her hands, refusing his bottle. Fever. She remembered the redness on Noah's cheeks yesterday, the shallow breathing, the way his body trembled in her arms, her heart clenched tight. By afternoon, Clara was inspecting the rooms, eyes sharp as glass. "You missed a corner," she said, pointing at a faint speck of dust. "Do it again." Emily said nothing. She bent down and cleaned, every motion deliberate, silent, obedient. Upstairs, through the ceiling, the faint sound of crying drifted down again, mixing with the wind. When night fell, the mansion grew even quieter. All lights off, the sea murmuring somewhere far away, shadows sliding across the walls. Emily sat in her small staff room, hands clasped, eyes closed. She had followed every rule. She had kept her distance. She had stayed silent. But the crying, that cry, still echoed inside her. It wasn't just noise anymore. It was a plea, desperate and human. She bowed her head and whispered into the darkness, "God, if you brought me here, show me what I must do." Her voice trembled, barely audible. A breeze slipped through the window, brushing against the thin curtain. Something stirred in her chest. Not fear, not rebellion, but resolve. Quiet, growing, unstoppable. Emily had barely slept that night. The crying still echoed in her head, tangled with half-formed prayers she didn't know if anyone was hearing. Morning came wrapped in fog, the light thin and pale as it slipped through the kitchen window. Clara had left early, saying she wouldn't be back until evening. The two nannies were nowhere to be seen. Emily stood alone in the stillness, a cold cup of tea trembling in her hand. Then it came again, that sound. Not just crying this time, but a hoarse, uneven gasp, the kind that made her blood run cold. She froze. "Hello? Is anyone upstairs?" No answer. The mansion swallowed her voice whole. She didn't think. She ran. The door to Noah's room was ajar, and the moment she stepped inside, heat rolled out like fire. The baby lay in his crib, face flushed deep red, sweat glistening on his tiny forehead, breathing quick and shallow. His cries had turned weak, almost silent. "Oh, God!" she breathed, hurrying forward. Her hands shook as she grabbed her phone and dialed the pediatrician's number she'd seen in the files. "Dr. Morales? It's Emily Carter. I'm at Mr. Hale's house. The baby, Noah, he has a very high fever. There's no one here. What should I do?" The doctor's voice was calm but firm. "Warm compresses only, no cold water. Give him infant syrup if you have it. Lay him on his side to help his breathing. Call me again in 20 minutes." She followed every word. "You're okay, sweetheart. I've got you," she whispered as she worked. Her hands were gentle but sure, wiping his skin with the warm cloth, steady even as tears blurred her vision. She found a bottle of syrup, coaxed the medicine past his lips. Gradually, his breathing slowed. The red on his cheeks faded to pink. Emily sat on the edge of the bed, Noah curled against her chest. The air smelled faintly of milk and fever medicine. Without thinking, she began to hum, the lullaby her mother used to sing when she was a child. "Sleep, little one. The sea is calm tonight." Her voice trembled, but it filled the sterile white room with warmth. Noah's hand clutched at her shirt. His eyes fluttered open once, then closed. His body went slack against her. The fever was breaking. For a moment, there was only peace. Just the two of them in that white, quiet world, like they were the only souls alive. The door burst open. Daniel stood there, suit still on, eyes wide and dark. Behind him were two business partners, and right after them, Clara, her lips curved in a razor-thin smile. "She overstepped, Mr. Hale." Clara's voice was sharp, eager. "She entered without permission. She gave your son medication on her own. I warned her, but she wouldn't listen." Emily held the baby close, trying to steady her voice. "Sir, no one was here. He had a fever over 102. I just—" "Put him down," Daniel cut in, his tone low, tight. "But," I said, "put him down." Emily lowered Noah gently back into his crib. The baby whimpered, his tiny hand curling in the air as if reaching for her. Daniel's gaze shifted to his son. For an instant, something broke through. Fear, maybe pain. Then it vanished. His voice, when it came, was ice. "You're fired. Leave this house immediately." Clara dropped her eyes, hiding her smirk. The men behind Daniel looked away. Emily swallowed hard, her voice cracking. "You're making a mistake, Daniel. That boy doesn't need rules. He needs someone to love him." He didn't answer. He stood rigid, his jaw locked. Emily turned, brushing one last hand over Noah's cheek. "Sleep well, my love. I'm so sorry." She walked out slowly. The corridor stretched endlessly before her, her shadow gliding along the white walls. When the heavy door closed behind her, the wind from the ocean roared up the cliffs, carrying the crash of waves, and somewhere within that sound, faint but unmistakable, came the cry of a baby calling for someone who was already gone. Emily walked along the coastal road as the sun bled into the horizon. The waves crashed against the cliffs, spraying white foam into the air, and the wind carried the taste of salt that stung her throat. She didn't know how long she'd been walking. Her hands trembled. Her thin coat did nothing against the cold, and her chest felt hollow, like she had lost something bigger than a job. Maybe it was faith. She sat on a weathered bench by the road, pulled out her phone, then slipped it back into her pocket. there was no one to call. Her mother was growing weaker, coughing more each night. The medication was running out. Ben, her younger brother, had skipped classes 2 days in a row to work night shifts at the gas station. Everything they had depended on her. And now, there was nothing left to give. In her head, Daniel's voice kept replaying, sharp and cold. "You're fired. Right now." She closed her eyes, but what she saw wasn't him. It was Noah. His tiny face, those wide, clear eyes, that small hand gripping her shirt before letting go. She could still hear his last cry, faint but piercing, tangled with the sound of the waves. Days passed, each one heavier than the last. Emily searched for work everywhere, but no one was hiring. The rent notice slid under her door. Her mother's medicine cabinet was nearly empty. Ben was thinning out, silent and exhausted. One night, Emily sat beside her mother's bed, holding her frail hand, tears slipping down her face. "I tried, Mom. I don't know what else to do." Her mother smiled faintly, brushing her thumb across Emily's knuckles. "God will make a way, sweetheart. He never abandons a heart that still knows how to love." But even as she said it, Emily felt her faith cracking. She felt like she was drifting in open water, no shore, no direction, just the endless dark. Meanwhile, at Hale Estate, the house had grown quieter, too quiet. Since the day Emily left, Noah's crying had faded, then stopped entirely. Clara called it a good sign. The pediatrician disagreed. "He's too quiet. No reactions, no engagement. It's a classic case of emotional deprivation." Daniel sat in his office, the glow of his laptop blurring in front of him. He couldn't focus. The silence inside that enormous house pressed heavier on him each day. He heard the sea outside, the wind tapping against the windows, and realized he no longer heard the one sound that mattered most: his son's voice. One night, he stopped by Noah's room. The baby lay still in his crib, eyes open but empty, staring into the void as if searching for something that was gone. Daniel knelt down beside him, reaching out, but Noah didn't move. And in that still, breathless moment, Daniel felt something inside him crack. The house he thought was keeping them safe was slowly destroying what little love they had left. And somewhere out there, beneath the cold ocean wind, a woman was still whispering prayers into the dark for a child she was no longer allowed to hold. Rain came down the coast, like someone shaking out a heavy black veil. The road to Hale Estate gleamed with water, streetlights bleeding into the gray. Emily stood under the low awning by the side gate, her thin coat soaked through, her hands shaking from the cold and from something worse. A feeling she couldn't shake. She had no plan, no excuse. She only knew this silence wasn't peace. It was something fading, and if she was wrong, she'd apologize. If she was right, maybe a small life would be saved. The service gate wasn't locked. She slipped in like a shadow, following the dark staff corridor, the damp smell of wet wood mixed with the sting of ocean salt. Inside, everything was dim, the hallway lit by a weak nightlight. She stopped at the stairs and listened. No crying, no voices, a stillness so complete it made her heart sink. Emily climbed. Each step left a damp print from her shoes. Noah's white door was slightly ajar. She pushed it open. Cold air drifted out, tangled with the thin, sour smell of old milk and dried sweat. Noah lay in his crib, eyes open but glassy, his breathing a thread. He felt so light that when Emily placed her hand on his chest, she almost didn't feel it move. "Oh God, Noah." The words broke like a sob. She lifted him, pressed him to her chest, heard a faint rasp. His forehead wasn't hot like before. It was cool in a way that hurt to touch. The cool of exhaustion. "I'm here. I hear you, baby." She lowered her chin, cheek brushing his hair, shaking as she forced herself steady. The light snapped on behind her like a blade through the dark. Clara was in the doorway, hand on the switch, eyes like ice. "What do you think you're doing in here?" Her voice cut through the white room. She didn't wait for an answer. Her phone was already in her hand. "I'm calling the police. You've broken in." "Don't," Emily said, voice raw, arms tight around Noah. "He's not okay. His breathing is shallow. Please, look at him." "I don't need your diagnosis. Give me the child." Clara stepped forward to grab him. Emily backed up half a step, and the room spun. She shut her eyes as little bursts of black dotted her vision. She'd had water and a cold cup of tea today. 2 days before that, a crust of bread. Since she'd lost her job, she'd given her meals to her mother and to Ben. She tried to inhale, but the air felt thick. "What are you pulling here?" Clara snapped, fingers biting into Emily's arm. The wave hit, cold and hard. Emily's knees unhinged. Even as the darkness took her, her arms locked around Noah, wrapping him in a reflex as old as love. A heavy thud echoed through the ceiling. Downstairs, through the rain hammering the glass and the wind, Daniel looked up. The second sound came with a thin burst of crying, and he left his chair like a man yanked by a wire. He ran, heart slamming against his ribs. He flung the nursery door open and stopped on the threshold to a frozen scene. Emily on the floor, pale as paper, lips colorless. Noah on her chest, crying in tired gulps. Clara to the side with her phone midair, eyes calculating rather than alarmed. What happened here? Daniel's voice was hoarse as he knelt, lifting Noah carefully from the vice of Emily's arms. The baby's breath was shallow, spent. He set his son into Clara's arms for a second, then checked Emily's pulse. Weak, but there. "She broke in, entered the nursery without authorization," Clara clipped. "When I told her to leave, she pretended to faint. I'm calling the police." "Call an ambulance first," Daniel snapped, sharp and final. "Now." Clara hesitated, then dialed. Daniel shrugged off his jacket, slid it beneath Emily's head, and looked at her face so closely he could see the clumped, wet lashes. A small bruise bloomed where she'd hit the floor, but what terrified him was the gray around her mouth and the bluish line beneath her nails. He heard himself whisper, "Why did you come back?" But the answer was right there in her locked arms, in the tear clinging to Noah's lashes. Sirens cut through the storm. Medics flooded the room, working fast. "Severe hypoglycemia," one said, glancing at the monitor. "She's severely depleted. Looks like she hasn't eaten properly in days." They started a glucose line, braced her neck, lifted her onto the gurney. Daniel stepped back, cradling Noah, a vice closing around his chest. Clara hovered in the corner, eyes flicking from him to the child, to the tiny camera in the ceiling, as if only now remembering it existed. When the ambulance drove off, Daniel stood under the eaves watching rain polish the driveway into a mirror. Her words from that day returned, clear enough to touch. No one here really sees him. He held Noah tighter. The baby's fingers clenched at his lapel like they were clinging to the last solid piece of the world. That night, while Clara arranged for the mess to be tidied, Daniel walked straight to his office and opened the security system. Black squares glowed, then little green lights winked on. He scrolled back. Day, then night. His face hardened in the screen's reflection. He watched Emily slip into the nursery after the staff had gone, lift the baby, hum a lullaby with no soundtrack but a heartbeat. He watched her check his temperature, reposition him after feedings, bathe him with a warm cloth the way only someone practiced would. She never looked for the camera. She acted like no one on earth was watching. He scrolled further. Clara stepped into frame, flicked the intercom off, turned away. Another day, she swapped formula cans, relabeled them, logged a wrong dosage time, and left. One afternoon, with a meeting on the calendar, she sent a nanny home early, leaving the nursery empty. Everything lay there, white and cold. Daniel didn't move. His hand froze on the mouse. Nausea rose. Not from the rain, not from the hour, but from the truth. How had he been so blind? He hit dial. "Dr. Morales? This is Daniel Hale. I need to ask about that day. Did Emily Carter call you?" The doctor's voice was clear, weary. "She did. She called in a panic, said no one was home and Noah had a high fever. I gave instructions. She followed them precisely. She knew what she was doing." "Thank you," Daniel said. But the words snagged, breaking into a breath that wasn't steady. He ended the call and pressed his forehead to the back of the chair. On the screen, Emily still held Noah, swaying, her eyes softening each time the baby stilled. No performance, no audience, just human kindness. Wind hissed against the window panes. Upstairs, Noah lay quiet, not crying because there was nothing left to cry with. Daniel rose and went to his son's room, sat by the crib. He placed a hand on the baby's small chest and felt the thin, exhausted rhythm. He whispered, "I'm sorry." And for the first time since his wife died, he didn't try to stop the tears. They fell, hot and private, beating time with the rain on the roof. In that silence, he understood something simple and brutal. She had saved his child, more than once, even after he pushed her out the door. And from this moment on, he would not let anyone, least of all himself, hurt his son ever again. The hospital lights were harsh and white, cutting through the stillness. Daniel sat in the corner, hands clasped, eyes fixed on the small figure in the bed. Emily lay pale and motionless, her lips dry, clear IV lines snaking from her arm. Each beep of the monitor struck like a blade in the silence. He had been there for hours. Back at home, Noah was under medical care and sleeping peacefully. But Daniel couldn't rest. Every time he closed his eyes, he saw her face under the dim light. The woman he hadn't trusted. The one who had saved his child with the last of her strength. Then Emily's fingers twitched. Her eyelids fluttered open, catching the light, and Daniel was on his feet, stepping closer. "Emily?" She blinked a few times before a faint voice escaped her lips. "Noah, is he okay?" He froze, exhaling shakily. "He's fine. Because of you." A tear slid down her cheek. She smiled weakly, as if that was the only answer she needed. Daniel sat beside her, his voice rough. "I was wrong. I didn't see what was right in front of me. You saved my son, and I..." His voice faltered. "I owe you everything. I'm sorry, Emily, and if you'll let me, I want you to come back, not as a maid, as Noah's official caregiver, with full pay, contract, everything you deserve." Emily was quiet for a long time. In the white glow of the hospital room, she saw something new in his eyes. Not the cold detachment she remembered, but the look of a man learning how to love again. She nodded softly. "I'll come back. For Noah." When she returned to Hale Estate, the air itself felt different. Clara was gone, and the silence of the house had turned gentle. Noah's cries had changed to soft, happy babbles. He recognized her instantly, his little face lighting up when she entered. Daniel stood at the doorway watching them. Emily held Noah, humming that familiar lullaby. He stepped closer, placing his hand awkwardly on his son's shoulder, listening as their breaths fell into rhythm together. For the first time in months, warmth filled the house. Not from the fireplace, but from three hearts learning how to forgive, to trust, and to begin again. For a while, life felt calm again. Emily worked quietly at Hale Estate. Daniel was learning to parent, laughing more, talking less. But peace was only the surface of the sea before the storm. One morning, when Emily walked into the corner market, conversations stopped. Curious glances followed her to the counter. The cashier hesitated, then slid a newspaper across. "Have you seen this?" On the front page was a photo of her holding Noah in the garden, Daniel beside her, smiling. The headline screamed, "Widower's nurse seduces the boss to win his heart and his fortune." Her body went cold. The article was venom, accusing her of manipulation, of pretending to care, of using Daniel's grief to her advantage. And the source of the leak was unmistakable. Clara. She had contacted gossip sites, sold them photos and exclusive stories meant to ruin Emily's name. The rumor spread like wildfire. Neighbors stared. Old clients stopped calling. That night, Emily sat in her small room, tears sliding down her face. "Maybe I should leave," she thought. "They don't need more trouble because of me." When she stepped into the hallway, Daniel was waiting, the same newspaper crumpled in his hand. "I know," he said quietly, "and you're not going anywhere. You saved my son. I won't let lies destroy you." The next day, Daniel faced the press. No hiding, no excuses. He told everything about Clara's manipulation, the cameras, how Emily had saved Noah's life. He showed video evidence, statements from Dr. Morales, and the EMT reports from the night she collapsed. The story flipped overnight. The papers issued corrections. The public turned. Clara was sued for defamation and permanently banned from working in childcare. That evening, Daniel found Emily standing by the window holding Noah, the moonlight brushing over both of them. He stopped in the doorway and said softly, "They know the truth now." Emily looked up, a faint smile warming her tired face. "Thank you." "No," he said, his voice low. "It's me who owes you. This time the world will see you for who you really are." Spring by the sea was quieter. The light lay soft across the water, gentle and clear, the kind of calm that follows a storm. Since the day Daniel spoke the truth to the world, time had moved gently, no longer heavy. The rumors faded, the whispers died out, and Hale Estate filled with sounds it had long forgotten. Laughter, footsteps, and the soft, sweet babble of Noah calling Mama in the morning light. Emily worked as she always had, but now she wasn't an outsider. She and Daniel shared every small task. She made breakfast, he brewed coffee, she changed diapers, he read bedtime stories. Sometimes they simply sat in silence, watching Noah build wooden blocks as the ocean breeze carried the salt air inside. Warm and peaceful, like an old lullaby. One evening, after Noah had fallen asleep, Daniel found Emily on the veranda, hanging blankets to dry. The spring rain had just stopped, moonlight catching on the droplets still clinging to the fabric. He stood there for a long moment, searching for words. "Emily," he said softly. She turned, smiling. "Yes?" His voice was low, steady, but his eyes held a quiet depth. "You didn't just save Noah. You saved me." Her breath caught. Daniel stepped closer. "Before you came, I only knew work and fear, Fear of losing someone again. I built walls thinking they'd keep us safe, but I forgot that my son needed warmth, not silence. Then you came, and you brought that warmth back, not just for him, for me. The breeze lifted her hair, brushing her cheek. She looked up, eyes shimmering. Daniel. I was afraid too, afraid I'd gone too far, that I'd read too much into what wasn't there. But every time Noah laughed, every time I saw you soften with him, I knew. I already loved you. The words hung between them, fragile and real. Daniel lifted her chin, and their first kiss met. Light as the wind, quiet as forgiveness. Not a spark of passion, but a spark of healing. Time passed like a gentle tide. Emily's mother recovered under the doctor Daniel hired. Ben returned to school and later earned a music scholarship. Noah grew strong, laughing easily in both their arms. The house was no longer Hale Estate, but a home, warm with the smell of baking bread, the sound of Ben's piano, and two hands that always found each other at sunset. One afternoon, after the rain, Emily carried Noah into the garden. A rainbow arched over the horizon, vivid and full, painting the sea below. Daniel came up beside her, wrapping his arm around her shoulders. She looked at the sky, eyes shining. Funny, she whispered. Rainbows only come after the rain. Daniel smiled. Just like us. Emily looked at him, then at the child in her arms. In her heart, a quiet truth echoed, the same words that had once guided her through the darkest night. Love heals where coldness fails. And for the first time in her life, she knew it wasn't just a phrase. It was the truth.